Hey all, P here. It's kind of a cloudy day outside today, and I wanted to sit down and do a video here in my man cave at home because I recently shot 4 water trapping videos, and as I'm watching them, I don't think they're terrible, but I wanted to fill in some gaps, and I feel like that would be helpful for those that are watching my videos to learn how to trap. I just feel like there's some points that could be emphasized a little more than I did when I was out there, and I want to I kind of want to cover a general overview of things to keep in mind that I either focused on a little bit in my videos but not enough, or maybe I missed altogether, which I've been known to do at times. I am wearing my social work shirt today. I am a social worker. I got my master's in social work from Utah State University. It's a great college. It's one of the best agricultural colleges in the Western United States. I wasn't there for an ag major, but I am proud of where I went to school, and I'm proud of the work I do as a social worker. So today I'm wearing my social work shirt. It surprises some people that I could be as kind of libertarian minded as I am and be a social worker. But let me tell you something. Mental health is non-discriminatory. Everybody can struggle with mental health. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or a black, white, brown, whatever. Mental health does not discriminate, and mental health is real. And, you know, I talk to a lot of folks at outdoor conventions and things like that who are as conservative, or I'm not conservative, I'm more libertarian, but who are over on the right somewhere and have struggles with mental health. Kids have struggles with mental health. Mental health is something we should all be able to agree on that needs attention in our communities. And for those of us that value independence and value limited government and value rural culture, one of our other things that we almost always value and we share in common is that we take care of each other. And we have to keep that in mind. And I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just saying mental health is something we all need to be aware of, and we need to really look out for each other because it affects everybody. It can affect everybody. It's non-discriminatory. So I'm proud to be a social worker. I'm proud with the work I do as a therapist and as a counselor. Most of the people I counsel are teenagers or young adults. I've worked with young people for 25 years. So that's what I do at my grown-up job. And then my fun job is trapping. So let's get to the trapping discussion, shall we? So I shot 4 videos this last weekend on water trapping. My wife, who's awesome, was my camera person. And I want to talk a little bit about water trapping in general here. I may shoot a few more water trapping videos. That's what I'm best at, is water trapping, but I don't know that there needs to be a ton of videos made about it because it is so simple. Everybody complicates this. I'm telling you guys, there are a few fundamental things to know. You know, just like in any sport, there are rules of engagement. You know, in mathematics, there's the order of operations, you know, PEDMAS. But once you understand the basics, right, the fundamentals, then the experience is your teacher. The experience is your teacher, and learning to trust your instincts. There's been times I'm walking down a creek, you know, and I'll look at a place I've walked past a bunch of times and go, you know, I've never looked at it from this angle before. And I'll bet I could do this or whatever and catch something right there. I just never have considered it from this angle before. And so you kind of trust your guts, and boom, they come through for you. Water trapping is great because you don't have to worry about scent. You know, I mean, I've read some stuff from old mink trappers and stuff. They're really concerned about scent, and I've never had an issue. You know, I mean, I love that about water trapping. So let's start with the fundamentals of muskrat trapping. In my second video, I make a basic muskrat set. 99% of my muskrat sets are on sign. Okay, so I go down the creek And I'm talking southern Idaho here. I mainly trap creeks. I don't have a boat to trap rivers. Rivers are a little different, I know. We don't have a lot of sloughs and marshes where I trap. There are some in southern Idaho, but not where I trap. So I walk down a creek, and I always try to get in the water. I like to walk in the water so I can see things from the perspective of an animal swimming in the water. And I trap in the spring when the rats start running, as they call it, which is early February. I like to have my traps out the first week of February, okay? When I was in high school, I used to wait till I was sure that the water had stopped freezing. Sometimes the edges will freeze a little bit, and then I'd set. And I was usually about right. But now I just go, well, early February, and if I'm early, then I'm early. It doesn't matter. So first week of February, I take my number 1 long springs, my roll of wire, and my pliers, and I start walking down the water. And like in my second set, in my second video, I make a basic muskrat set. What I'm looking for is rocks or logs or outcroppings of land into the water. Anything that a muskrat is crawling up on top of and crapping on. Now, if it's before the breeding season, if I'm early, I may just see old sign, or I may have sets from previous years where I know that they're going to be crawling up, or if it's a new area, I may just have to guess at first. And then once they start running and I'm checking my traps, I can see, oh, wait, they're not crawling up on this rock, they're crawling up on that rock. And I'll just move my trap over, okay? So I'm looking for rocks, logs, thin pieces of land coming into the water, where they're going over the end of it, hopping up on the end of it, crapping, going back in the water, that kind of stuff. I take my number 1 long spring, I find a rock in the creek or on the bank. I put good tight wire around it so it won't slide off. I run a wire from that rock to my trap ring. And then I put my trap on that rock. I put a little muskrat crap on the pan. And I make sure the rock is out in deeper, swifter water. You want at least a foot deep. And you want a little bit of a current. That number 1 trap will pull that rat down and drown it every time, as long as that rock is out there in the deep water. And you don't have too much slack in your wire. If that rat can get to where they have got footing, then they will wring out. They'll wring their foot off. You'll have a muskrat foot in your trap. That has not happened to me since I was a sophomore in high school. Because once you do it for a season, and that happens to you a couple times, you go, oh, crap, okay. And then you either use stop loss in those sets, or you just don't set there, okay? That is 99% of my muskrat sets. It is not rocket science, folks. It's not. Okay, 99% of them I'm setting on muskrat crap, on a rock, on a log, on the corner of a bank, something like that. Piece of cake, okay? Sometimes I will make feed bed sets. And I did not shoot a video for a feed bed, but I talked in one of my videos about a good spot for one. When you're making a feed bed set, what you're basically doing is you want to look for a place where there's cover overhead. So vegetation coming out, giving some cover from up top so that the rats can crawl out of the water without worrying about an owl or a hawk, or we got a lot of hawks in southern Idaho. They don't death from above. They want to avoid that. And you can use your boot or your hand, and you just slick a little ramp up, like it looks like rats have been going, make it look like rats have been going up and down out of the water right there, and about 1.5 feet up that ramp, beat the mud back a little bit, and just pile a bunch of watercress is best. And if you use watercress, rinse it off real good so that they can see those white roots from that watercress. So watercress, if you've got watercress in the creek, carrots, apples, those are good things for bait. Here in southern Idaho, we have a store called Winco, and you can go buy this bag of carrots that's like 3 feet tall. And I can't remember what it costs, but it's not much. And I just buy one of those if I'm really doing a lot of rat trapping. And I'm going to make a lot of feed bed sets. Feed bed sets are good in the fall and stuff too, because they're not moving as much, but then you're using that as bait, So anyway, things will come steal that stuff. In the spring, I always start to get rock chucks coming out, and they'll come down and steal food out of muskrat sets. And you're like, where's all these carrots going, And that'll happen, but it's not a big deal, But that's a feed bed set. All you need for a feed bed set, overhang, cover, mud where you can make a little ramp going up, and then a platform with the food on it. Your trap can go anywhere, really, but I like to put it right at the base of the trail under about 1 inch of water at most. And I like to kind of sink it into the mud, ease it into the mud just a little bit to hold it there. Feed bed set. Run your wire out to the rock in the water. That's it. Same as if you were setting it on a crawl out area. Okay, that's pretty much my muskrat sets. Once in a while, I'll find a underwater trail to a den or something, and I'll set a conibear, a 110. But in the creeks that I trap, those are hard to spot, and they're just not as easy as if you were trapping a canal where you can see it, or a marsh where you can see the runs going to their houses and stuff like that. Okay. Occasionally, I'll make a float set. I have some floats. I have not had good success with them on creeks. They do well on rivers. They do well in marshes and sloughs. I will make a float video, and I'll show you where I put a float every year, and it gets me a few rats. But that's muskrat trapping, folks. It's not rocket science. It's not, okay? 16 gauge wire is fine. The one thing you got to remember is you want to make sure that that wire is wired good to that rock. And even though you don't need a 15-pound rock for a muskrat, it's not a bad idea to use a little bit bigger rock, because if a coon steps in your trap, which will happen, it happens to me all the time, several times a year. A coon steps in a number 1 long spring trap, and it's there waiting for me on the bank. When I check my traps, it has not pulled out. A number 1 long spring will hold a coon just fine. That's why I like the number 11s for coon traps, because it's just a number 1 double long spring is all it is. It's a great coon trap. You don't need giant coon traps, okay? And I don't like them because if that coon starts biting at the trap and his foot gets numb, he'll start chewing on his foot without realizing it, and he'll chew out of that trap. And with a number 2 or a 3 or whatever these ridiculous sized traps people use for raccoons, then, you know, he's got all the room in the world to get his head down there around his foot. But on a number 1 or a number 11, he can't get down there to his foot. And most of the time in those number 1s, I catch him. It's like a pad catch for a coyote or something. So he's got enough of a foot in there he can't pull out, but not enough that he can do anything about it. So you want to make sure your rock's wired well in case a coon steps in that trap. And in my 3rd video I shot for water trapping, I showed that rocky area, and that's a place where if you're looking to get coons, that's a good spot. Those are things to look for, because that's where they come to look for crawdads and stuff. And even a number 11 with one of those rubber crawdads or something on the pan down in the water is a great set. But you know what? If I'm trying to catch a coon at that spot I showed in my video, I just put a number 11 on one of the rocks and throw some fish oil around it. Coon steps on it. You don't have to bury it or anything, okay? I'm not going to do any videos on dog-proof trapping, but one thing to look for if you are doing that is trails alongside the creek. Okay, those are great places for dog-proof traps. All right, I'll just say that. Now, let's go to mink trapping. I'll do a different video on beaver at some point. Mink. If you are muskrat trapping, you know, even as a hobby, you know, you'll end up catching mink as incidentals. Okay, because mink are where muskrats are. They eat them. They go in their dens, kill them. You know, they're a predator for muskrats. So you'll end up catching some mink, probably on accident, okay? Now, if that's enough to satisfy your mink itch, great. Then just go trap muskrats and you'll probably grab a couple mink. If you want to set specifically for mink, I am a huge believer in natural cubbies. Now, not every place has natural cubbies, so you might need to make some mink boxes or stuff like that, but natural cubbies. So like in my video I showed, in that first video I shot, I was talking about that set across the creek behind the sprinkler wheel. This boulder comes down like this to a V, and there's 2 natural cubbies right there made by this rock, and one of them was, you know, 3.5 feet deep, the other was a couple feet deep. I don't use any bait there, usually. I just put a trap in the mud in each of those cubbies. There's about that much water in the bottom of the cubby. I just set my number 11 in one, put it in there under the water, and then usually I only have so many number 11s, so I'll usually put a number 1 on the other side. And, you know, like I said, the last time I trapped that stretch of creek, I had 3 mink. So look for natural cubbies. You don't want them too small, you know. You want them big enough for a mink to get in there. And if you want to use bait, fine, throw some muskrat meat back in there. That's plenty. If you really want to bait it up, throw some fish oil on the outside of it, throw some fish oil back in there. You can use sardines, you can use anything fishy smelling, tuna, anything. But muskrat's great. A muskrat leg, throw it back in there. If it's underwater, if the muskrat leg is going to lay underwater, then take a stick, drive it through the muskrat leg, and stick it into the mud at the back of the cubby. If you can't, because it's a rock cubby, then set a rock back in there up out of the water and put the muskrat meat on top of it. You almost don't need it. I rarely bait my natural cubbies. I just put the trap in there. Because if you've ever gotten a chance to see a mink in the wild, it's really cool. They're a really cool critter. I love mink. They're just really neat looking. But I've seen them when I've been fishing and stuff, and they'll go along and they will go into every single nook and cranny and explore everything along the bank. And if you get a chance to follow their sign in the snow, you'll see what I'm talking about. You know, they jump into there's a sprinkler pipe one time at this place where I was setting a trap, and I could see where a mink had come up the bank on the snow, gone through every tree root, and then climbed up the higher part of the bank, walked over to this sprinkler pipe, jumped up in it, came out, and his tracks went on down to the next thing. They just explore. That's what they do, okay? So any natural cubby, that is my go-to for a mink set. Boom, natural cubby. Boom, natural cubby. Boom, natural cubby. Okay? If I don't have bait, I don't care. Another thing to look for mink and muskrat that is hot, when you find something like this, set the shit out of it, is where you've got a bank, the water goes back to the ground, kind of to the bank, and there's a lot of vegetation hanging over down into the water. And so you've got a natural hidden pathway behind the vegetation. And it's really good if it's not even like, so if the vegetation comes down and then behind it, maybe there's a little bit of water, but mainly it's mud. So it's kind of a natural highway back there that's water, but they're not swimming. They're going to be walking or running that. And if you can find one of those that isn't very long, that's only like 3 or 4 feet, a 3 or 4 foot portion of the bank where there's vegetation coming over, an overhang, and there's kind of a shelf back there. They call it like a shelf set. Oh man, put a trap on each side of that where the animals are going to come out of the water about an inch below the water. I say an inch below the water for mink because mink, I don't generally ever have mink step in an exposed trap. I have on a couple occasions, but I can't even say that for sure because the water level may have gone up a little bit and they stepped in it and then the water level came back down before I checked my trap. So I cannot say definitively I've had a mink step in an exposed trap. And so most of the times when I catch mink, it was in a trap that was just under the water a little bit, okay? So if you find an overhang like that with a shelf behind it, put a trap on each side, weight it just the same way you do the muskrat set I described, out to the deeper water, and you can squish the trap, wiggle it down into the mud just a little bit so it holds it in place. Money for mink and muskrat, okay? I had a set like that a few years ago in one spot I was trapping. Every day there was something in it. Every day there was a mink or a muskrat in that thing, And so it was just one entrance. So I ended up kind of forcing the vegetation around a little bit to create 2 entrances. So I put 2 traps there, and then I started getting doubles there. So those hidden shelf, I call it a hidden shelf set, but I needed to explain what it was first so you knew what I was talking about. That's cash money, man. You will grab critters there. Third favorite mink set is honestly my mink boxes. So if I've got a mink highway somewhere and I don't have a good way to drown them, and like in my first video I shot the other day, you could create a slide set under that bridge where I was talking, but too much work. It's right by the road. All I gotta do is get out of my Jeep and put a mink box there. Okay. So if you got a mink highway, make yourself some boxes that'll fit 120 Conibear. I like my boxes about 1 foot long. Okay. And so I put some slits down each side so the springs, the 120 will slide in there. Throw a muskrat leg in the back of the box or some fish and put it on a mink highway, and the mink will eventually investigate it. Sometimes they'll pass them up, believe it or not. I've had mink pass up my boxes, but it's a waiting game. They'll get curious and go in. And you'll also grab coons once in a while by the head, so that's why you want to make sure it's a 120, and make sure it's wired. Don't just wire it to the box. Wire that Conibear. If you want to wire the Conibear up, you can wire it to the box, but then make sure the box is wired to an anchor point, because if a coon gets in that, he's going to that 120 isn't necessarily going to kill him instantly. He may thrash around or something and end up disappearing and be dead, which sucks. So you don't get to recover the animal. Also, there's always a chance an otter might stick their head in there. In that case, you're probably going to lose the trap unless you're really lucky and you've got it wired really, really strong, because otters are beasts. And I can't imagine a 120 dispatching an otter. If someone is watching this video and has had that happen, post it, because I'd like to know. But there is that possibility. Where there are mink, there are otter oftentimes, and they're going to be attracted to the same thing mink are. Okay, so you don't want to lose your trap. It's okay if an otter gets in it and is able to pull his head out or destroy the whole area, but you still can recover your trap in your box. But if you don't have that trap wired strong and an otter sticks his head in there, you're never going to see that stuff again. Anyway, so that's a basic overview of the videos I shot. Mink and muskrat basic sets. Again, my muskrat sets are on sign and occasionally feed bed sets. I don't deal with colony traps and I don't deal with den sets because I don't have a lot of opportunity for that where I trap. My mink sets are always natural cubby first, highways second, like the overhang shelf set, and third would be mink boxes. Easy peasy, all right? Don't overthink it. I'm Pete. Thanks for watching. Remember, God is great, guns are good, freedoms are precious, and look out for each other. Look out for each other's mental health. Thanks.